It's no secret, there are countless NFL players that have checkered past littered with a variety of transgressions. For many of these men who were raised in struggling low socio-economic areas, they were a product of their environments. But as we all learn in one point or another of life, excuses will only get you so far, and if you want to overcome whatever adversity plagues you, you need to take ownership of your decisions and write your own story. Some of these guys learned this at an early age, others learn it in the nick of time, and unfortunately some learn it far too late or not at all. And when that's the case, it can be a brutal spiral, because these players can have all the talent in the world, but if they can't clean up their acts off the field, more often than not, the story ends in utter tragedy. For this linebacker, his path to the NFL was loaded with pitfalls and missteps, some of them relatively insignificant, but some were serious enough that he was faced with the crushing reality that he may never play football again. Demario Davis's story starts in Brandon, Mississippi, a 20,000-person city located just east of the state capital. His father was an enlisted soldier who was rarely around during his upbringing, and his mother, Sue McGee Davis, had Demario at just 16 years old, so his childhood was rather tumultuous. But even amid all the chaos, his mother always made sure there was food on the table. It was a humble but safe upbringing. In the sport-crazed city of Brandon, Demario was a mini celebrity. He was a standout athlete in 3 sports: basketball, track, and obviously football. While his notoriety suited him well on the playing field and amongst his peers, it also resulted in a sense of invincibility for Davis, first showing itself in class clown-esque behavior, which would often result in nothing more than a phone call home. But then as he got older, his transgressions started to escalate. An older crowd in Brandon was drawn to Davis for his athletic prowess, and he started hanging out with them more and more, and athletics soon became just a vehicle for his social life. At that point in his life, it was all about drinking, smoking, and going out to clubs with his older friends. My adolescence took on this whole new world, Davis explained to NOLA.com. I was more concerned about being a cool guy, doing what I felt was cool, and being this tough guy, trying to prove who's the baddest. Davis is far from the first high school athlete to get a little carried away with his partying, but unfortunately it didn't stop there. During his sophomore year of high school, Davis began to develop a proclivity for the occasional heist. The first incident on record occurred when he saw a classmate showing off a stack of cash in his wallet, and something clicked in Davis's brain. He decided to steal it. He had a plan to quietly snatch the wallet off of the kid and sneak off, but he quickly realized he wasn't the smoothest criminal around. And when faced with the choice of handing it back over in embarrassment or doubling down, he chose the latter and sprinted off with the wallet. The victim reported the theft to school officials, who in turn called home, this time for something much more serious than just in-class hijinks. The school's code called for him to be permanently expelled, and the victim's parents reportedly wanted to press charges, but the school's principal vouched for the star athlete and negotiated to compromise on his behalf. The terms of the deal required Davis to attend the Brandon Alternative School for the spring semester, and then provided he remained without incident, he would be readmitted to the school in the fall, just in time for football season. How convenient. While the principal may have had good intentions, letting Davis off easy only enabled the troubled teen, who explained that he didn't learn anything from the experience. Davis put it like this: when you have that type of mentality, you don't blame yourself, you blame everybody else. To me, it wasn't a big deal. I thought everybody was overreacting, like all I did was take a wallet. As far as Davis was concerned, it was everyone else who had the problem, not him. And as Davis's rogue behavior continued to escalate, he edged closer and closer to completely derailing his future. Just 6 months after the wallet incident, it all came to a head when Davis and a friend tried to break into an abandoned house by wrapping a t-shirt around his arm and punching through the window, like an action movie. The only problem? This was real life, and the makeshift battering ram did him little good.
Oh my God, how do they walk away in movies without flinching when it explodes behind them? There's no way!
As the glass shredded his forearm and he began gushing blood from the wound. He then ran all the way home and lost so much blood along the way that he blacked out and remembers none of it. He desperately tried to stop the bleeding, but it was no use. He needed professional attention, so he finally relented and woke his mother up at 2 a.m. in the morning to show her what he had done. The duo rushed to the emergency room, terrified that he had sliced an artery. Fortunately for Davis, he hadn't. The doctors were able to stitch up his forearm, leaving a 3-inch scar that is still visible today. Davis says that, while laying on the table that night, he heard a voice that planted the seeds of his redemption story. "This is strike 2, the voice said. "This is strike 2, you almost killed yourself. If you don't learn, the next time you're going to jail for a long time or you're going to be dead." Davis was taken back, hearing from what he knew to be the voice of God, and he was nothing but an upstanding citizen for the rest of his high school days. During that time, he was met with excellent news. Arkansas State offered him a full scholarship, something that brought his mother, who was still financially crippled by student loan payments, to tears. DeMario signed his national letter of intent on February 7, 2007, and his mother, while joyous, marked the occasion with a somewhat ominous warning: "Whatever you do, don't lose your scholarship." But unfortunately for Davis and his mother, the young man still had some lumps to take on his path to redemption. Shortly after he arrived at Arkansas State, the freedom triggered Davis's old ways and he began partying, and worse, stealing again. It was also at Arkansas State that he learned from his friends of a surefire way to load up their dorm room pantries with all of the snacks that they wanted. His friends would load up a cart full of groceries, pull up to the self-checkout, and only scan $20 worth of items and discreetly exit with the rest of the booty. Davis, however, was not nearly as proficient at the process as his pals were, and his first time running the operation went haywire quick. He filled up his cart with over $250 worth of snacks that nearly spilled over the sides of the cart, and when he went to pay for $20-some-odd worth of it, the wait for assistance light flashed, and again, Davis panicked, running out of the store with the goods. Soon after he made it back to his dorm, 2 police officers arrived and arrested Davis in the broad daylight right in front of the students passing by.
Broad daylight, rockin' by, baby. Yeah, that's that New Jack City, boy.
One of Arkansas State assistant coaches bailed him out of jail, but then Davis had to really face his maker and call his mother. She was devastated, explaining that it wasn't like he even needed the food. As McGee Davis put it, "It wasn't like he didn't have money, because I would send him money every week. That was so amazing to me that he didn't even have to. Why would you do that?" A week later, Davis and his mother drove 4 hours to Jonesboro for his hearing. He pleaded guilty, hoping that the judge would give him just a slap on the wrist, just like all of Davis's disciplinarians before had. But instead of just a fine or probation, the judge also sentenced him to 3 days in the clink. Davis remembers the moment and the heartbreaking look on his mother's face all too well. She had a look on her face like, "There ain't nothing I can do for you, son. I can't save you. You got yourself into something I can't get you out of," Davis said. Davis served his sentence, never once leaving his bunk. And more importantly, he heeded the advice of a couple of older inmates that sought him out. They told him, "Pass your time and don't come back." When Davis returned to campus, the storm was far from over. Head coach Steve Roberts was understandably furious and suspended him indefinitely. As reparations to the team, he had Davis running hills outside of his office for upward of 6 hours every day, telling the linebacker that if he ever looked out that window and he wasn't running, he was done at Arkansas State. Coach Roberts didn't see this as a punishment, though. He wasn't trying to do something to Davis, rather something for him. He helped implement a stringent plan to get Davis back on the right track. Breakfast checks, curfew checks, the whole 9 yards. All of it contingent on a zero-tolerance policy for missteps. Davis was down to his final strike. During this time, Davis, who grew up in a Southern Baptist household, spent a ton of time with the team chaplain, Chuck McElroy, and in doing so, he reconnected with his faith. This time in a much deeper and permanent way. Through his relationship with God and McElroy, Davis banished his demons permanently, swearing off drugs, alcohol, sex, and most importantly, stealing. His mother described it as God doing another miracle, explaining that she had never seen anybody change so drastically so quickly. DeMario's faith became everything to him, and he enrolled in the Tampa Project, a 10-week evangelism training course over the summer. His coaches weren't thrilled that he would miss their summer practices, but they felt that if this was what it took for him to stay on the straight and narrow line for good, it could be very well worth it. The linebacker returned ready to start the 2009 season, but his absence over the summer resulted in a diminished role in the team. Despite only starting 4 games that year, Davis racked up 63 tackles, corralled 2 interceptions, forced 2 fumbles, and notched a fumble recovery, earning first-team All-Sun Belt accolades. It was a performance that Davis says was God showing him that he had made the right decision. Heading into his senior year, Coach Roberts left, and assistant Hugh Freeze, who had been at Arkansas State throughout Davis's tenure there, took over. Right before the season, Freeze called Davis into the office and explained to him that he had a clean slate and needed to be a leader on the team, a role that Davis would relish having and thrive in. After a dominant senior season, Davis was invited to the NFL Combine, where he put his talents on display for everyone to see. Then at Arkansas State Pro Day, he recorded a 4.52 40-yard dash and a 38.5-inch vertical leap, which is no small feat for a beast of a man that stands 6'2" and weighs over 250 pounds. He parlayed his senior year performance and combine numbers into a dream come true. DeMario Davis was selected in the 3rd round, number 77 overall by the New York Jets in the 2012 NFL Draft. With that came a $2.81 million contract and a $618,000 signing bonus, as if he didn't need to steal before. Since being drafted, Davis has had a solid NFL career, contributing significantly on almost every team he has played for. More importantly, he has continued on the right path and has not had any run-ins with the law since. Not only has he been a top-notch citizen, he has used his newfound wealth and platform to create and support a number of charities close to his heart. Needless to say, Demario Davis has had one epic comeback story, both on and off the field. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.